Hello, community, and welcome to the second episode of She Sparks Live, women leaving their mark and sharing their spark. Today is Women's International Day, and with us we have a very special guest, Kelli Charlton, who is a transparent educator, right?
Sure.
Specialist. Wonderful. So thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And so the topic we're going to go over is selling versus educating. But first, do you mind if I ask you a crazy question?
Sure. Crazy question.
Crazy question.
Why not?
Because it's International Women's Day. So Kelli, who has been the most influential woman in your life and why?
Oh, this is my favorite part. My mother was absolutely influential in my life.
Aww.
She was service oriented. She believed in women. She believed in women's worth, and my father believed in women's worth. He always said a household needs two people working to really make that household function. And while my mother went to work every day and did everything she could to make sure that my brother and I were intelligent, educated, gifted in whatever our gifts were, she also served in our community women's group. The Del Cerro Women's Club, Junior Women's Club. And I remember as a child going to the local university. It was San Diego State College back then, and watching hundreds of women take off their bras in the 70s, fly them up a flagpole,
Yes.
light them on fire, and sing Helen Reddy, Hear Me Roar, I Am Woman. And that, I think I have to say, even though she's been gone for a long, long time, she is absolutely my favorite, most influential woman ever.
And if she was with us today, Kelli, what would you like to tell her for International Women's Day?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love that.
Thank you for clearing the path so that we could pave it.
I love that.
So that all women younger than me there's never a question as to what they can achieve
I love
and
that.
how far they can go.
I think that is amazing. Thank you for sharing. And so ask yourself, listeners, who is the most influential woman in your life? And if she is still living or if she's not, please reach out to her and share your appreciation, because you never know what you have until it's gone. And the words there's such a huge impact. And so, Kelli, share a little bit about what you do and what is your passion?
So my story is varied. I started out as a daycare provider for my children. Obviously were there, and then I would take in neighborhood kids. Then my previous husband and I moved to Las Vegas, where I did it again, except this time I did it with gamblers' children, and they would come on Sunday and leave on Friday, and I would have my weekends free. And then I moved into finance and insurance, and that was powerfully educational, right?
Love it.
And from there, I actually became a business owner with my second husband. We owned a heating and air conditioning business that went from just itty bitty to really big.
Wow.
And then the market changed. I was thinking about this morning. I've always been passionate about whatever I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's always been a great thing for me. I never felt like what I was doing wasn't useful. It was always something that I wanted to do. And then when the market crashed in 2008, 2009, I went back to school. And I literally walked into a counselor's office.
I didn't know that.
I did. I walked into a counselor's office. I'd been taking classes 1, 2 at a time for 20 years. And I said, with the credits that I have, what is the closest degree I can get? And he looked at me and said, well, you can get an English Lit degree. If you go 1 more year, you can get an English education degree. And I said, oh, that's right up my alley. I like that idea. So I finished my English degree and then did a year's worth of training. And in 3 years, I had my bachelor's degree and my certificate to teach.
I love that.
So I should be a high school English teacher. But as fate would have it, I ended up getting a job with the Skin Institute, which is an aesthetic school. And we found ourselves without a science teacher, someone to teach anatomy and physiology and biology and cell structure and histology and electricity. And I thought, well, I can do that.
That is so cool.
So I was 3 weeks ahead of the students. I would study from 4 till 6 in the morning, go walk 4 miles, come back to school and teach. And after 11 semesters of that, I fell in love with science.
That is so cool.
And then I got a job with a hearing aid company that wanted me to start a department to help people play brain games and get their brains working. And it all just fell into place.
That is awesome.
And then my most current job as Director of Education for Stapley Pharmacy, I get to do it all. I get to write, I get to interview, I get to be the public presence for the community, for the pharmacy.
A huge influencer, for sure. For sure.
That's my history. Who would have known? And as Steve Jobs says, you can never know, obviously paraphrased, you can never know how the dots are going to connect until you look backwards and see those dots.
That is amazing, Kelli.
Thank you.
And so you're an expert in transparency education.
So you want to know what that means?
I was just going to ask you, what does that mean? What is that title?
I believe in education. I believe that when you educate people, it is basically, as the Bible says, if you teach them to fish, they can feed themselves. If you give them a fish, they only have a meal for one meal. So I've always believed that. I believe in transparency as well. And those who know me well know that I don't hold much back. I do have a filter. I am sometimes politically correct. Sometimes, that's the key word there. But the truth is, we have to be who we are. We can't be someone else. A leopard never changes its spots, and man cannot serve two masters. Mm-hmm. You can't lie to yourself and think that anyone else doesn't know that you're lying to yourself or them.
Yeah.
So the truth is, I believe in being a transparent educator. So for today's purposes, I'm a transparency educator.
I love that. And she has actually come and you've done some training for She Sparks, and so I completely agree. You are a total expert in that. I love that. So before we dive in more to selling versus educating, I want to be a little vulnerable with each other, if that's okay.
Sure.
And I want to ask you a question. The community knows that a tragic did happen in Stapley Pharmacy, and I know that was really hard on you. But my question for you, because a lot of people out there, we're all going through challenges.
Sure.
Whether it's a death of a loved one, or feel like we're in debt, or just fighting with family. So I know, and you shared your spark of your journey of where you were and where you're at today. But what has really helped you, Kelli, overcome really hard challenges in your life?
That is so interesting that you would ask that question. Because I believe in transparency, I have to share a couple of things. As much as I admired my mother and my father, my mother was an alcoholic. She was a functioning alcoholic. And she died when I was in my early 30s. And we watched that evolution we watched that evolution my entire life, but we really watched it the last 20 years. So from the time I was a teenager, I watched this self-destruction. And I realized early on that I had one of two options. I could either embrace her world, or I could love her and embrace the world that I wanted to be part of, and make my own world. Not becoming angry at her. There was no point in becoming angry with her. It was her life. Yeah. I think she thought she was going to live a Disney life, and it didn't quite happen. And so as I have moved through life, things have never been exactly as I've expected. I've been married twice. Nobody goes into their first or second marriage thinking they'll be married and divorced twice. But the reality is life happens. Yeah. And we can't control it. So all we can control is us. And so when you ask that question, what are the difficult challenges? Oh my goodness, I could fill a book with difficult challenges. But on the other side, you simply have to find the silver lining.
I love that.
Brad's death was tragic. Absolutely unexpected. Tragic in a way that it shook thousands of people, and I don't think we'll ever know how many, truly, how many people he touched.
Yeah.
But he would not have wanted us to falter or to stop moving in a forward direction. And so for me, and I know most of the staff of Stapley Pharmacy feels the same, for us, it was all about continuing his legacy, making sure that what he had built just simply continued forward.
I love that. And so one thing that you did say that really sparked my heart was you said something about control. And one thing that I think that we have control in is our attitude.
Absolutely.
I think that's something that we can decide, like if something bad happens, like losing a loved one, losing a huge impactful leader, an amazing guy in our community, what you just said, we have that control of, yes, being sad, but having that positivity to continue living his legacy and not forgetting who he is and loving the guy who he was.
Well, and I think one huge thing came out of this for me, and I mentioned this at the vigil the night we had the candlelight vigil, and it's also now in the St. George Health and Wellness magazine, and that is he really leaves us a gift as he leaves. For some people, the gift is that he had prepared ahead for his family. And so the legacy will live on with his family. His wife and his children struggle in his loss, but they don't have to struggle financially. And that's a huge piece for some people that they're taking away. Yeah. For me, what I'm taking away is exactly what I said in the vigil. And that is that there is no time to waste. Mm-hmm. If I have something nice to say, if I have change that needs to be affected, I'm responsible for doing that. And I'm not responsible for doing that in a month or 2 months or a year, because I don't know what's coming. I have no control.
But that's the exciting part.
And that's the gift.
That's the journey.
Right.
It's not the destination, it's the journey.
I have to affect change now.
Yep.
Today, which is why I'm here.
Yeah, and keep moving forward. I love that.
Right.
So let's dive into the topic for the episode, and that's selling versus educating. Okay. We had an event last month, and Kelli came and did a really cool, quick training on it. I want to talk about this topic, Kelli, because I know you do specialize in it, but I see a lot of people out there who are trying to get business, and they're either promoting themselves or they're demoting themselves. Right. And I think that ties into selling versus educating.
Right.
And so what do you feel is the difference between selling versus educating in the business world or even in the personal world?
So for me, there's nothing worse than being sold to.
Right? I agree.
I've always said, if you have to sell me on the fact that you're reliable, or sell me on the fact that you're trustworthy, mm-hmm. or sell me on the fact that you're gonna get the job done in the right way, I'm gonna question why you're selling me on that. Mm-hmm. Because really what I want you to do is I want you to help me feel comfortable with you. Yeah. I don't want you to sell me on your qualities. I want you to sell me on the emotional connection that I'm gonna make with you. Years ago, my kids and I were at a county fair, and we were in Las Vegas. No, I think we were in St. George. We were at the Washington County Fair, and there were some people there were selling pots and pans. Well, I was looking for pots and pans. I was looking for a new set, and they were selling these amazing pots and pans. And I said, sure. I put my name in the bucket, and they called me and said, you're a winner. Of course, everyone was a winner. You're a winner. Can we come to your house and talk about these pots and pans? I said, sure. Come on over. So I thought this would be a great experience for my kids. So I sat my kids down, and we're having a great time. And the next thing I know, I am signing a check for $3,000.
Oh my gosh. I need to know them. Whew.
Best pots and pans I've ever purchased.
Yes. Okay.
Also, my kids have never let me forget that I spent $3,000 on pots and pans. I was a sucker for that sales guy. An absolute sucker. I can't remember a darn thing he said to me. I just know that I still, 15 years later, have those pots and pans in my cupboard.
So it was worth every penny.
Every penny.
It was worth every penny.
So here's what I'm talking about, though. When I educate someone about what I do or what we have in the pharmacy or who they can be, when I educate them as to why they need to be a better person, a stronger person, a more educated person, they're going to remember how they felt with me.
Yes.
But if I tell them, you have to do this, and I sell them on the experience, they may not get it.
Mm-hmm.
They're always going to make that connection.
Yeah.
And they're never going to forget that emotional experience that they've had.
People won't always remember what you say,
right,
but they will always remember how you felt.
How you made them feel.
Exactly.
Right.
So do you have any techniques that you would like to share with the listeners on ways that we can be more educators and less trying to sell to people? What's some techniques you would like to share?
Okay, I'm going to tie that into my testimony of She Sparks.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. All right. So I'm a huge women's advocate. I've always believed in women. Anytime I meet a woman who's down on herself, I always say to her, you know, the truth is, my greatest fear is that I'm going to be found out a fraud.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't see myself like other people see me. So I'm afraid of that. But when I go to She Sparks, there is a power when it comes to sitting at a table with 6 or 8 women and being vulnerable, being transparent, and sharing. The difference between selling something and educating someone really comes down to one minute thing. If I am selling a product, people may not be ready. They simply may not be ready. And so what happens is they tune out. They tune out as soon as I start talking. But if I sell them on me by being transparent, by being real, and helping them understand what I do, the bottom line is that's simply educating them so that when they're ready, they can fish.
Yeah.
And we leave the meal at the table and we stop trying to pretend that that's the most important part, because really the most important part is what connections am I making to those people at the table?
I actually love that you just said that, because I feel like when people are trying to sell more than educate, they're trying, and this is what we really train in She Sparks, like I see people trying to sell to people,
Right.
sell to you, but instead trying to educate them so they can sell through them,
Right.
not to them.
Right.
And so I see that all the time, so I'm glad that you said that.
Well, we've talked about this before. When I was at She Sparks last month, I said, how many in the room remember what I talked about in December? A bunch of hands went up.
I was, yeah.
And I remember saying to everyone, if it's just my voice in the community, just my voice, it's nothing. But if I have 55 women who are learning from the things that I'm saying, I now have 56 voices, mine and 55 other women out there selling by educating.
Yeah.
And then they become my advocates, and then I don't have to do so darn much work.
Yes, no, I completely agree. So is there any last tips or tricks you would like to share with our listeners about selling versus educating?
Oh, I think...
any advice?
Yeah, I think we all have a product to sell.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is we're selling us. And we have to be comfortable with who we are. We have to be secure and confident in what we have to offer. And never second guess what it is that we do. If we're second guessing, it's time to move on. It's time to change. It's time to do something different. We have to be confident in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we have to believe in it and continue to live the standard of ethics that I know we all strive to live.
Yeah. Believe in yourself, believe what you do, and own it.
And
right?
own it.
The more you
100%.
own it, the more you own it, the more confidence you're going to have. And if you ever, and you can back me on this, if you ever feel like quitting or wondering what the heck you're doing or that you can't do it, just remember why you started in the first place, right? And if it doesn't work like you said, there are other opportunities for us to grab on to.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And like I said earlier, we simply never know how those dots are going to match up.
Exactly.
People might look at my resume and go, what in the world? How is she where she is now, making the money she's making now, starting in daycare? But the truth is, everything we go through, every step along the journey is a piece to the bigger whole.
I completely agree, Kelly. Yes. Well, we're super excited that you were here to be our guest today for International Women's Day. I think that is so powerful to have you, and we're so grateful to have you as a member of She Sparks Business. And I know that the community just loves you, what you're doing, and the impact that you're leaving for everybody. You know, not only in the community, but so much more. So we do appreciate you coming today. We do have something for you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And listeners, please tune in for our next episode. Love you much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.